Hello guys, Omni here. I just got back from the theaters from seeing Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I just saw the original film just a few weeks ago. I posted my full-length reaction to it since it was the first time watching it all the way through on the Patreon, so you can check that out if you like. Just another way you can support the channel if you're interested at all for my initial reaction to that film. This time around, helming the film is Andy Serkis, who has a lot of experience with acting and working with people acting off of things that are not there. Famous, obviously, from Lord of the Rings as the infamous Gollum and Smeagol. He's become quite the poster child, if you will, of the CGI artist, from the mocap artist. And bringing that to life, I think it really helped this film with connecting Tom Hardy and Venom as characters, because it was seamless seeing them interact with each other, from the eye line to every way that they kind of played off of one another, given both characters are, just like with Andy Serkis in Lord of the Rings, played by Tom Hardy. And he does a fantastic job. Both in the original film and in this one, Tom Hardy and the relationship Eddie Brock has with Venom is what, for me personally, drives a lot of the entertainment and heart of the film. Just how their dynamic, their bond, how they banter and bicker and play off of each other. It's amped up here. Like everything that I think worked in the first film, I think they turned it up to 11 and made it work even harder in this one as well. Michelle Williams and Reid Scott return as Dan and Anne in here as well, and they are just as present and just as charming as they were in the original. And I like seeing the back and forth again in way that they contribute to the story. I think across the board, a lot of the performances in this, just in general, are solid. I really like the characters in this. New additions, Naomie Harris and Woody Harrelson, bring this extra flavor of like comic book cheese that I really like. Though Woody Harrelson doesn't go full on into cheese, but there's this campy nature to a lot of his dialogue, the way he interacts, but in a menacing kind of way that this character and only Woody Harrelson can kind of blend those tones together and make it work. Carnage in this is gorgeous. The CGI in this one, they spared no expense, while the symbiote in the original kind of had a little bit of a fakey kind of feeling here and there. And here, you could definitely tell that they used their budget wisely. Carnage and Venom both look gorgeous. While Venom looks phenomenally better in this film, he still has kind of a standard design. Now with Carnage, they really push the limits of this thing, because Carnage is beautiful, like from the tendrils to the musculature to the skeletal structures that you can kind of see implied from the way that Cletus transforms into Carnage and how that contrasts to how Eddie transforms into Venom. It's really interesting seeing how they really kind of played it up with that character and had a lot of fun with the symbiotes, with the hosts and all of that. And it was really interesting. I do think that this still in the same way as the first film, but in different ways. I do think that it still struggles with pacing, though this time around, I feel like the first act is very rushed, because I think that they really want to get to the meat. Because once we get to the middle of the second act, things start to slow down a little bit. At times during the first act, the first half even of the second act, it did feel like we were just kind of like hopping from scene to scene. Sometimes it felt like there was some there was some transition in there that probably got cut for time. And maybe it's because a lot of their budget was spent on making these CGI characters look fantastic, that maybe they just, that's why the film's so short. Like, I feel like the first half of the film just doesn't really have a lot of breathing room. There's some really great scenes that are interconnected, but they don't feel like they flow that well together. And some of the scenes do feel quite rushed during the opening section of it. Though, like I said, once we get into the meat of the story, all the characters and the players have been introduced, where they are, what they're doing, their motivations. Once all of that's established for the new players, now we don't have to do that for the characters we met in the first film, but we have some new players in here, such as Stephen Graham's Detective Mulligan, Naomie Harris's Shriek, and of course, expanding on what we already saw from Cletus Kasady in his introduction at the tail end of Venom. While this is kind of a clunky film, and it definitely has a clunky start, the film, what I think it does is it creates this blend of like the early 2000s Marvel films, like the X-Men films and Blade and all that stuff, and like injects it with this injects it with this 90s flair that kind of really inspired this run of the comics that this is kind of based on. And it lives in that camp, and I don't think it really shies away from it. And with the updated technology, camera work, CGI, and effects, and all that gets put in this film, it's really like an updated homage to the comics and to those kind of more earlier forms of the Marvel Universe in a way. While it does have a little bit of a cracked structure to it, I still had a blast with the movie. I think it nails what it was going for. I still think that it really needed a little bit more time to breathe, especially in the first act, to kind of like give you a moment to have a breath between some of these scenes, some of these transitions from these sequences in the beginning. You don't really get enough time to absorb what the information that's being thrown at you until it starts to slow down a little bit later. And that's when the movie really kicks into gear. And I loved the third act of the movie. I love the climax. I love the battle. While it feels large, it's very much about the characters. There's a lot of relationships that play a part in this, and relationships in general is a heavy theme of the film, whether it be the relationship between Eddie and Venom, or Eddie and Anne and Dan, Naomie's Shriek and Cletus Kasady. It's these connections that kind of fuel the core of the film, and there's a lot of that is the driving factor for a lot of the characters, and I like that about it. Like I said, it's not perfect, neither was the first one, but I had fun with both, and I enjoyed it. Now, the thing that's I think everybody wants to know about or hear about, and I'm not going to spoil a damn thing, but the post-credit scene, which it's not really, it's like, if I remember right, it's not even like the credits don't even roll yet. Like, it fades to black and then scene. For the final moments from Carnage himself to the final climax and all that jazz and the post-credit scene, those three things alone I think are worth price of admission to see this film. The post-credit scene, it does what great post-credit scenes do, and it sets up and implies a lot of potential for growth and a really interesting direction for Venom moving forward, for whatever his next adventure might be. It's kind of crazy, and I won't say anything further than that, but I'm really excited. It makes me really excited to see where Venom and Eddie fall next, where they show up next. So, yeah, it is what it is. Not a perfect film, but a fun one. And yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think. Sound off the comments. Let me know your thoughts down below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. Remember, if you want to check out my reaction to the first film, it's on Patreon, or if you become a member here on the channel, it also helps support the channel. But another way you can do that is just by liking, commenting, subscribing. And you can also come hang out in our Discord, where I got channels for Marvel, Star Wars, DC, general TV, movie stuff, whatever. Come hang out, chat. Links to that and all my socials are down in the description box below. And before we go, I want to shout out our channel legends: Mandy Sher, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, Philly Vane, Yuri Kurskov, Margaret Grace, and Peelings M. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.